And this is exactly what unifies Muslims all over the world. What makes you understand the Muslim in America. Okay. But of course, realizing the differences, okay, maybe in the details, okay, maybe in other theological aspects, which are open to differences, without necessarily getting into excommunication between groups. So, well, of course, interpretation is not for every person. Interpretation is a field of knowledge. I mean, it's like medical studies. Okay, so Quranic studies is a field of scholarship, and of course, interpretation should be done by someone, okay, who is invested in the history of Islamic thought, in the history of the text, knowing something. So it's, well, every Muslim could live according to what he thinks is the proper way he understands it. And there is no, but for every individual Muslim to claim that he can understand the Quran and try to enforce his understanding on others, this is not, of course, what you mean by individual interpretation. There is in any religion individualistic experience. For example, the way you pray is not the same way I pray. Praying is the same, I mean categorically speaking. But do you have the same experience in praying that I have? As praying is a communication, okay? So there is, or I mean, if you take from religion the personal, individualistic aspect, you are, in a way, not talking about experience, which is an essential part of religion. Okay? So the individualistic aspect, the communal aspect, and the common aspect, which will bring together in a certain principle all Muslims. Yeah, but even with these differences are possible, should be accepted and tolerated, because it has been accepted through the history of Islam. So this is the way. I mean, if you read commentary of the Quran and you read another commentary, you find similarities, but you find differences.
You spoke about historical interpretation, the necessity of historical interpretation of Quran. But there's a traditional historical interpretation of Quran, Asbab al-Nuzul. What's the difference between your conception of historical interpretation and the theory and the tradition of Asbab al-Nuzul?
Yeah, I understand. In my book, The Concept of the Text, I apply basically what is known as the sciences of the Quran, the Quranic science, ulum al-Quran. Asbab al-Nuzul is one of these fields. So it's not only Asbab al-Nuzul, it's Asbab al-Nuzul, the Makki and the Madani, the abrogation, abrogated and abrogated, etc., etc. So I apply this traditional, classical, historical information about the Quran. This is necessary. And it will apply a classical interpretation of the Quran. But what I mean by the context is something wider than the information given in ulum al-Quran. The information given in ulum al-Quran are dealing basically with passages, verses. But what about the text in its totality? So I think here I'm following up Muhammad Abdu's approach. That Muhammad Abdu said we have to understand the pre-Islamic peninsula in the 7th century. The social structure, the political structure, the religious that was there, even the oral culture, which is very, very rich, mixed culture. Well, unfortunately, in school books about pre-Islamic culture, it is conveyed as very poor, as very ignorant, as people just, that's not true. That's not true, because it has a long history, okay, and the Arabic Peninsula was not dissociated or disconnected with the world, because we know that the Roman Empire established an Arab state on its boundary, and the Persian Empire established an Arabic state in its boundary to protect the boundary from the Bedouin. Okay, so there is a contact. Early Quranic surahs reflect this contact. Okay, and there is a surah, well, it's well known about Surah Al-Rum, the Rum verse. And it started by talking something happened between the Rum and the Persian. Okay, the elephant chapter. It's about something happened before the Quran. Surah Al-Buruj. Okay, something happened before, centuries before the Quran, which means that, the Arabs knew about this. When the Quran speaks about the people of Ad and the people of Thamud, it is in the English surah, it's just mentioned by name. And you know that the Arabs knew about that. The Quran was addressing people who know about these names, these places, what happened, etc., etc., etc. So the recontextualization of the text is to study the context in this wide meaning of context. So the context is not only to apply the traditional sciences, which is very, very important, but to go beyond these traditional sciences. And there are a lot of fruits to this process of recontextualization. A lot of the phenomena which Islam attacked for, okay, like jizya, like polygamy, okay, like the stoning of women, etc., etc., etc. They are not primarily initiated by Islam. It's a pre-Islamic tradition, okay? And of course, we have to think about a revelation which is dealing with reality, okay? The Hadith, for example, we know it is not un-Islamic. It is pre-Islamic, but it was re-understood, reinterpreted. So it was integrated to Islam by a lot of change in its meaning and its significance. So if we look to all this, well, the jizya, for example, okay, it was a general practice by the Roman Empire, by the Persian Empire. It was an empire taxes imposed on people who are conquered. Okay, so now would this recontextualization, okay, explain to me as a scholar what is initiated by Islam? Basically, so I consider it Islamic. What was not initiated by Islam, but was integrated because Islam did not come to change, to change the world from scratch. Neither any religion, nor any scripture. Okay. So this recontextualization would explain to me a lot of things. Of course, including to that I would understand, and I think this is not, that the Quran was not revealed as one book. It was revealed in portions during 2-3 years, and this portion is not in the arrangement of the Mus'haf nowadays. It is not in the chronological arrangement. It was rearranged, and this kind of rearrangement, okay, now I'm not questioning this, okay, but this is what happened. And this rearrangement have to a great extent demolished the context. And that's exactly what made it possible for any ideology to find itself in the Quran. Because, well, not being great in its historical text, okay, replaced in its chronological order, for scholarship, not for Muslims to read. Because the distinction between Tartib al-Nuzul, the arrangement, the chronological arrangement or revelation, and the present arrangement, which is Tartib al-Tilawa, is recognized by the ulama. But the Quran was dealt with by the jurists for specific from the chronological order. Because according to the chronological order, you know what is the abrogated and what is the abrogated. If you just deal with the text in the order, you are not able to define what is first and what came next. So in books of jurisprudence, especially of Abu Hussein al-Basri, al-Ghazali, al-Amidi. Okay, they are dealing with the Quran according to it. They say, well, this verse was revealed before this verse, so if this is a general meaning, so it is specified by the next verse. So to define what is specific and what is general, what is abrogated and what is not. So this is very, very essential. But dealing only with the text in the present arrangement is for devotion, not for scholarship. Devotion, of course, you deal with the text as it is. But for scholarship, in order to answer a lot of questions, you have to go through this. And I'm assure you, a lot of problems that even in the history of Islamic theology are based on this kind of two arrangement. That's why it was possible for people to say this verse is ambiguous, and the other will say no, it's not ambiguous, this is clear. It depends on ambiguity. So here I'm trying to, in addition to using the traditional science, which I did in my third book, okay, to widen the concept of context, which I feel neither needing institutions, but laziness and accepting things as they are is an obstacle.
Am I right that you spoke in the beginning of the Holy Scripture as an object of interpretation, and on the end as a subject which gives me, as a believer, answers for my questions that I have?
At least a believer is implicitly expecting to find answer related to his situation.
But even as a scientist, you have the duty to look at the text as subject giving answers to relevant questions. Which aspect is primarily for you as a scientist?
I developed a certain first of all, I was very much enthusiastic about the hermeneutic theory that says there is no text. It's only the interpreter. Okay, the text is a physical phenomenon. The text does not speak. That's it. And this is exactly what Ibn Abu Talib said a long time ago. The Quran does not speak, but people speak the Quran. Okay? But now, if we are talking about a dynamic relationship, because this could be applied to a static text, which is there in the library. Okay? Of course, a static text cannot speak unless someone opens it and try to find the meaning. But a dynamic text, like the Quran, who has been a living phenomenon for 15 centuries like that. Okay? So there is a dynamic relationship between the interpreter, the subject, and the text, the object. Because the object is the text is not silent. Okay? It's not absolutely silent. There is around the text accumulation of interpretation. So there is a knowledge. You cannot, Professor Arthur, okay, I'm sure you know the name, he is claiming that it is possible that you break through all this, tradition around the text to reach the text in its security. I don't think that this is possible. This is hypothetical methodology, which is not true. Because at the end, the tradition which is around the text is part of the tradition of the interpreter. Whether the interpreter is a Muslim or a non-Muslim. Okay. You cannot ignore Al-Ghazali, Tabari, and say, well, I'm not. Well, no, I'm just going to go ahead to the text. Because what you are ignoring is part of your culture. So the dynamic of the text, it has something to say, and you have questions to raise. And by this dynamic relationship, okay, you try to find answers, sometimes successfully, sometimes with pain. But the methodological solution I'm suggesting, okay, is well, if it is possible that we recontextualize the text, if it is possible that we develop scholarship about the history of the text, about the pre-Islamic culture in its complexity. Okay. So probably, and this is only a suggestion, probably we can reach something like the historical meaning. What did the text mean for the recipient? Okay. So we reach the meaning. Okay. Well, it did mean this and that to the first generation. And we follow the development of the meaning. Okay. And how development in the meaning could express it via textual principles. Okay. Because it had been developed, textual principles to enhance progressive interpretation. And here I'm making clear, of course, this is not my distinction, but I took it from literary criticism. I think from Hirsch, he distinguished between the meaning and the significance. Okay. And he claiming that every text has a meaning. The meaning is historical. Okay. But of course, if any text is limited to the meaning which it produces to the temporary audience, then it's not living text. Okay. But there is no such text like this. Only, let me say, some historical texts, propaganda texts. Okay, because propaganda texts are supposed to, to influence some audience. Okay, like TV commercial, for example. This is a text also, but it's when the product is out, the text does not. But literary text, okay, a religious text, has a capacity for continuous radiation of meaning. But this also depends on the reader. So, in my opinion, if this contextualization could be fully accomplished in Islamic studies by Muslim scholars, by the way, okay. And here it's not a matter of because when it comes from non-Muslim scholars, suspicion is ready. Okay. Even if it is academically right. So we can, to a great extent, not absolutely, decide the meaning. And we have to go to literature, Okay. And then we can find specific meanings will continue which they have significance. But still some meaning will be historical. They could not, they do not have the capability of radiation. For example, what is mentioned in the Quran about slavery, slaves, okay? We could not take these verses and we say we should apply it. I think anyone, or some people claim that this is not mansukh, this is not abrogated, but this is not abrogated by deviation, it's abrogated by history. So what does his history abrogate? This is a serious question. Slavery, some people will say, and this is the apologetic discourse, will say, well, in fact, what is mentioned in the Quran about slavery is something that is not abrogated because history cannot abrogate anything in politics, but it is postponed. Munsab, this is the term, which is there in the Quran, probably a situation that the human being would return back to slavery, then the text will be reactivated. So also there is this theory that what is not active in the text this time probably will be reactivated in other circumstances. Or at least you should say, since it is the word of God, that should be reactivated in the future. But of course, this depends on a theory about history or about human progress. So this is what the differentiation between meaning and the significance could bring some answers. But again, a scholar should be very clear. His answers are not crystal, are not final. They are subject to change. Because he is living in a time. So the time will change. So whatever the scholar is very, very rigorous scholar, it should be always this kind of modesty. And this I call taqwa. I use taqwa. Yeah, the academic taqwa. Not to claim whatsoever that whatever you present is fine. This is the theory. Some scholars, some Muslim scholars who are very, I really respect them very much, but they claim something like that. And they say, well, this is not honesty. Because a dynamic text like the Quran, okay, has no final end. Because you are taking what most people will not develop furthermore. This is the end of history theory. Not taken from Fukuyama, but applied in a very naive way to the Quran. Or some people think history has stopped all the time. So this is, I think that is the possibility. But of course, I'm seeking for a discussion about this methodological proposition. A real discussion, not judgment. Okay? It's very easy to judge, but it's not that easy to get into discussion about the validity of this methodological principle or not.
Any other questions?
Student is discouraging. And you know how I'm going to feel to mine. Well, I know I'm talking English, it's not my language. It's not yours. We are using a third language. And this might bring me to the language of a holy book. We are human. But at the end we use a third code. God spoke to man. Which code is used? With the human code.
So probably not to discourage you completely, I have hopefully not the last question. First of all, I'd like to thank you very much for your presentation, which I like, particularly because it was so personal. So that was really the point I liked so much in it. I very much join your presentation in the case when you were claiming that liberalization and its defects is really something that we know, that there is the privatization of everything nowadays. I'd probably challenge much more your notion that there is a regime which is able to control culture on a state or national level. So I like therefore that if you would like, comment on that a little bit more on this.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's not possible now to absolutely control. Regimes are trying. They are trying their best. But they are not aware of something else. I mean, if a novel is banned, okay, Arabic novel, or an article, or a book, okay, how are they going to deal with it if I put it in the computer, on the internet? Okay. They are controlling TV programs, of course the national TV program, maybe the satellite, but how are they going to control it if you have a dish? And not to mention that in just a couple of months, the built-in dish will be in every TV set. Of course, they will hesitate much to import this set. Okay, but the market will push them because there is, the godfather of the market somewhere. Okay, that will give the order and they will vanish. So they are trying, okay, but they are not successful.
So does that mean, sorry to interrupt that you think that liberalization in this terms, in economic terms, is a hope to push on the discourse?
Yes, I think it is a hope, and I think it is going to happen maybe because now, for example, in Egypt, that's in Egypt, for example, I have contact with the new generation, even with students whom I have never met. Sometimes I get emails. Okay. There was a stupid TV programmer who met me, an Egyptian, on the channel of culture, and who met me in Madrid. And he insisted to make an interview with me, and I was very, very reluctant to make this interview because I don't make any interview in the Arab TV unless it is on air. So I'm sure that my word will not be twisted. Okay. But he insisted, and the Egyptian ambassador interfered, and he said, I guarantee, and I was polite, not to say guarantee. I mean, who can guarantee anything? In our way. But anyway, we have this interview which took about 1 hour and a half, and all the stupid questions, okay, including what is said about me, that I disgrace the Quran, I disgrace God, I disgrace the Prophet. I mean, he was stupid enough to bring all the stupidity in the market. And this was something good. I brought one of my 2 students who was studying in Spain now. Okay, they made PhD. They were my students in Egypt. I said, well, you attend the recording of this program. And I told them, if you are going to change anything, and I have to witness here, I'm going to sue you and the Egyptian government. And now I am in the international world. Okay. I think this really, I mean, frightened. Well, it was, of course, a threat. I don't have time to make such thing. So it was broadcast. First of all, it was broadcast in the encoding hours. So only very few people could see it. But it seems that so many people were asking for it. So I got just a phone call from my sister. She doesn't have the decoder. And she was telling me, I saw you on the TV. So there is some, bottom line pushing for, people asking what is going on. And for the new generation, they have unanswered questions. And the generation which now is in their 30s, okay, they were born in the 70s. Okay, so they didn't really have the experience of 1967 defeat. They don't have the experience of being socialist and nationalist. I mean, they came already after all these ideologies has failed. So they are not accepting the already question, answers. They have their own questions, they are seeking for answers. And for that purpose, they can go to what is prohibited, okay, looking for answers. And this is exactly part of the stupidity of the regimes. Because if you don't open the market, okay, people would look, well, what is in this novel? What is in this movie? It's more attractive if something is bad. Okay, so I think there is a possibility that the new generation at least is not full with answers, is full with questions. And if the society is full with questions and not accepting the given answer, you know that change is coming. That's for sure. But how long will it take? That's not the question.
If you speak about discourse now, then I got another question, and it's, do you think that the reactions... I got another question to the discourse, how ideas are discussed in Egypt. Do you think that the reactions he faced were kind of discussing ideas, or do you think it's restricted on a kind of struggle on the question who's having authority to define reality?
Well, I think these two issues are connected together. Because if people discuss about ideas, okay, there's always the question of the authority. If you challenge a certain answer, you are challenging the authority, which is producing this answer. And for the religious authority, it has been under challenge for a long time. Not only in Egypt, but in the Muslim world. The institutions have been under challenge by the opposition, religious opposition, since Muslim Brotherhood Association started in 1988. So there is another religious discourse produced, giving answers, not through the institution. Sometimes there have been some collision between the institution and the opposition, but now the political opposition is far away from the institution, and this led to a phenomena which is dissemination of authority. So authority is not really concentrated in one hand. I'm talking about intellectual authority. Last incident in Egypt, the Minister of Culture took a decision to ban three novels, and he dismissed so many intellectuals from their positions because they printed these illegally bad novels. But the reaction of the intellectuals was more resignation from the Ministry of Culture, and there is a campaign now